Joseph Frank Buster Keaton was born to parents Joe and Myra Keaton, performers in a travelling medicine show, before they moved into vaudeville. Little Joe got the name Buster after a nasty fall down some steps, which he miraculously escaped from unscathed. Not, as is often told by Harry Houdini, who did tour with the family, but from a lesser-known vaudevillian, George Pardee. The boy officially became part of the Three Keatons act aged 4, and their raucous performances earned another nickname for him, the Human Mop, as his father wiped the floor with him and threw him about the stage so often he had a handle sewn into the back of his costume. Buster's 2 younger siblings, Jingles and Louise, spent a short time in the act, but the Jerry Society, who enforced child labour laws, meant that the 5 Keatons became 3 again. Buster's age was lied about. Sometimes he was passed off as a midget, but it was a bit of a stretch for all 3 Keaton kids. He worked hard, but Buster made up for his graft with 3-week-long summer vacations in Muskegon, Michigan, which he thought of as home. He is much loved by the town of Bluffton to this day, and it is where the International Buster Keaton Society holds their annual conventions. By 1917, he had quit the act, and in a supposedly chance meeting, found a mentor in comedian and performer Roscoe Arbuckle. Roscoe invited the likely lad to his film studios, and the story goes that Buster asked to borrow a camera. He took it back to his lodgings, disassembled it, reassembled it, and returned it the next day, much the wiser to how it worked. He filmed his movie debut in The Butcher Boy, and went on to become one of the Komiki team, until he was gifted the studios in 1920. Buster Keaton served in World War I and made corporal. He always insisted he was never in combat and came back from the back, but there is evidence to suggest he did see action in the weeks before Armistice, which earned him his promotion. He also lost his hearing in his right ear after a severe infection. He made 19 successful short movies in just 3 years before embarking on features in 1923. His output in the following 5 years is arguably the work of genius. Unsurpassable stunts, storytelling, comedy performance and cinematic vision. Buster Keaton could do it all. The General, 1927, was his personal best, and near a century later it remains a revered classic. Life wasn't all sunshine and lollipops for Buster Keaton. He married 3 times, the first 2 ending acrimoniously. He was estranged from his sons, Jimmy and Bobby. He lost his studio as sound began to come in, and was forced into accepting a contract with MGM that wiped out most of his artistic freedom. Drink became a problem. Despite his sound pictures being well received, his contract was terminated and the wilderness years began. Buster was never out of work for long, and he did come out the other side of those marriages and the drinking to meet a young dancer, Eleanor Ruth Norris, whilst playing bridge. 23 years his junior, they wed despite the concerns of friends and family, and stayed together until his passing 26 years later. Eleanor was rarely away from her husband's side. They worked together on tours throughout Europe, notably at the Cirque Medrano. With the support of Raymond Rohauer, Buster Keaton's silent films were rescued from a vault in his once palatial Hollywood home, and thus began the first of many revivals of Buster's work. The 1950s and 60s were the television years. Buster was forever looking forward and embraced this new medium, starring in 2 namesake shows, countless advertisements and guest spots. He made a number of industrial films for companies such as US Steel and John Deere, but his most beloved short film of the 1960s was The Railrodder, in conjunction with the National Film Board of Canada. His life story was sold for a princely $50,000, which bought he and Eleanor their Woodland Hills ranch, which they shared with many much-loved animals, visited by friends and family. A little slice of paradise in exchange for what the pair both thought was a rotten movie. Buster Keaton always insisted he would live to 100, but stepped off the stage 3 decades early, February 1st, 1966. Yet here we all are, celebrating his birthday, watching his films, laughing and marvelling at his on-screen feats, being inspired by his infinite creativity, his ultimate stoicism. And whilst we still think of him, he will live on